maintenance manual explaining the principle behind the accumulator. So a zero charge, oil charge, nitrogen charge, and then full charge with oil under pressure from the nitrogen here. Again, it's telling you exactly what we've just talked through a couple of times, making sure that we are setting our valves back to the normal running position before we charge up the system. And then we are to then monitor the pressure buildup, and then of course we can take the pressures again from the individual accumulators. Okay, if these accumulators aren't charged or working correctly, then this can give you some spurious indications which will make you think that there are other things wrong with the system. Okay, these need to be correctly charged so they are functioning and giving you a correct pressure indication and movement on or in your hydraulic power supply system. The latest and greatest, so a new service letter came out last year to explain the fact that the checking of the accumulators is more important than first believed. Again, this is because of the expected pressure drop, which is have a look down here. Every month is between 2 to 5 bar. So you can imagine if we say, okay, every 6 months we're checking our accumulators, then that means one accumulator can have a 30 bar pressure drop. And if you have 3 accumulators on each unit, so therefore we have a 90 bar pressure drop per unit. So that's quite a lot of pressure degradation in our system, therefore causing some spurious alarms indications for us here. So we need to ensure that we follow the service letter telling us what needs to be done. Okay. So we can see that we don't have a chart or a graph as such. We just have some equations or correlations. So at 0 degrees temperature-wise on the specific accumulator we're working on, then we should be charging at 124 and so on and so on. This is again for 300 bar system. Yeah, the 200 bar system, we would use the table for that one there. Okay, so there is a service letter out telling us about this, and it's also going through the procedure about how we would also overhaul, maintain, and also the overhaul procedure for this accumulator. Now, before I move on, are there any questions whatsoever?
Is there any alarm that we can know the accumulator give?
There is no specific. There's no specific alarm for the accumulators having
okay, thank you.
Low pressure. It is the system pressure we'll be monitoring. So the The service letter I mentioned before, we have our guiding between overhauls, and we can see that we have ME, MEC, MEGI. If you're looking at the MEC, which is what we're talking through today, we can see that we have our guiding between the overhaul timings. So we can see here we have the excuse me, fuel oil pressure booster down here. It's 32,000 running hours is the overhaul interval, and we can see that we have a expected service life of 64,000. And of course replace or recondition depending on the condition of the booster. However, you have to, when doing overhaul, change the seals on the equipment inside the booster, and also change the suction valve every time you overhaul, and also check for wear and so on. Okay. We also have the I can just see it now. The accumulators here. So we have the accumulators. This is telling us when we should be doing it, and the rubber diaphragms inside the accumulators. Now, the accumulators can be, the accumulators do come with a repair kit, so you don't have to purchase a complete new accumulator. So we have the option to purchase the diaphragm, the retaining ring, and the sealing rings for the connection of the accumulator onto the block itself, for the flange, which we saw a little bit earlier. Okay. Again, a simple piece of kit, but it will make your life a misery if you don't look after it. Isn't it always the way, though? So now we're going to go through to the lubricator. Looking at the lubricator, so we can see here we have, in this case, a high low BN into our gravity tank, feeding the lube oil, or sorry, the cylinder lubrication oil side of our lubricator, and then through the small bore pipes into the unit itself. So we can see our lubricator. We have a level sensor, a feedback sensor, and a solenoid valve, and we are mounted on to the hydraulic cylinder unit block. So we are using hydraulic power supply system pressure for the activation of the lubricator. Signal from the CCU to the pilot valve or the solenoid valve to move the plunger inside, or the actuated piston inside, charging the lines to inject the cylinder lube oil. We have a feedback sensor for the position of the lubricator, and we have a level sensor here for the indication of oil shown here. In service, so we can just about see at the bottom of the page, we have our level sensor so that we know that we have some oil. We have our feedback sensor for the movement of the main piston inside. We have the solenoid valve for the activation of our main piston inside the lubricator, and the small bore pipes and the non-return valves here going through into the liner. So not a lot really has changed as such. Some small design changes to make it function on the ME engine. However, if you worked on an alpha lubricator, then you know your way around a lubricator mounted to an ME engine. Looking at the cylinder liner, we can see that we have in this design here, we have a numerous amount of quills or injector nozzles, and depending on the position of the injector nozzles, it depends on the length of the tip. As you can see here, we can see that we have a shorter tip on A. This is because it is going to be perpendicular or directly into, or we have the B, which is going to be offset from a straight line. Now, there are two size of bolts, so you cannot mix them up. So just keep in mind, even though that you can't mix them up, just put the A set on one side and the B set on the other side and mark them clearly just in case. But it should not be possible to mix them up during overhaul or maintenance. So we can see that we have the quill in the liner wall as always. Then we have the injection point, and the oil will seep into the liner chamber, and then of course we will be expecting some sort of curtain form of oil around the unit to protect the moving parts within the chamber. Okay.